After Earl's white moonlight, Iris got drunk. She was taken away by 5 strange men and stayed out all night. In order to protect her, Earl spread the word everywhere that it was me who was with those men that night. I was criticized by everyone, and the child in my belly was regarded as an illegitimate child. I questioned Earl hysterically, but he said indifferently, "Iris isn't married yet. If this gets out, she'll be laughed at." I looked at the man I had loved for 6 years, feeling icy all over. I suddenly realized that he might have never loved me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. What about me? When I questioned Earl with red eyes, he was hugging Iris and soothing her in a soft voice, his eyes gentle and affectionate. Iris was wearing a white dress and shrank into Earl's arms in panic. Earl turned around, his eyes evasive and guilty. I raised my hand and slapped Earl in the face. Seeing me hit Earl, Iris spread her arms and stood in front of him to protect him. "Why did you hit Brother Earl?" "Brother Earl was just trying to help me." "Are you really being so petty?" Earl's expression was a bit uncomfortable. He waved Iris away and carefully hugged me in his arms. "Stop crying, Rebecca. Iris isn't married yet. If the thing that happened that night gets out, it will be bad for her reputation." My heart turned as cold as ice. What about my reputation? Do you know how people are talking about me? They say I'm promiscuous. And they also say our child is a little bastard. Earl's eyes showed guilt, but he remained silent. Iris swayed unsteadily on her feet. "It's all my fault, Sister Rebecca. I'll go and explain to them right away." Earl immediately held her in his arms with a pained expression and comforted her in a gentle voice. Then he looked at me with a reluctant expression. "Rebecca, as long as I don't care about those rumors, it won't do you any real harm. But Iris is different. She's innocent and kind. She just made a mistake because she was drunk. If this gets out, it will ruin her whole life." Iris wiped away her tears. "But, Brother Earl, your child will be called a bastard. It's better to explain it clearly. I'll take the responsibility for my mistake." My voice was hoarse. "You don't care. Then what about your child? Do you have the heart to let him be born with the reputation of being a bastard?" Pain flashed across Earl's eyes, and his voice trembled slightly. "It doesn't matter. The child won't understand things until he's 3 or 4 years old. By then, no one will remember this thing." Tears suddenly fell. I held back the intense pain and questioned, "Is Iris really that important? So important that you're willing to stigmatize your wife and child? What on earth do you take me for?" Earl held me in his arms and said in a hoarse voice, "I'm sorry, Rebecca, but Iris has been kind to me, and I can't just ignore her." I kicked and punched in his arms, trying my best to break free from his embrace. Why should I be the one to pay the price just because he wants to repay a favor? Earl seemed not to feel the pain and held me tightly in his arms. "I won't let you suffer for long. Once Iris gets married, I'll reveal the truth and clear your name." Looking at his determined expression, all the pain in my heart turned into a decision. This child, I can't keep it. I was forcefully sent home by Earl, and Iris followed behind. As soon as I entered the living room, I noticed the changes in the room. The sofa cover had been replaced with a pink one, the green plants I had raised were thrown away, and there was an extra pair of women's slippers next to the shoe cabinet. After what happened, Iris has a psychological shadow of hotels, so I temporarily let her live at home. When we find a suitable house, we'll let her move out, Earl explained carefully. I twitched the corners of my mouth but didn't say anything, my expression indifferent. Earl looked a bit at a loss seeing my calm expression. At dinner, I looked at Earl indifferently as he tried to please me by picking up food for me. At night, I stared blankly at the ceiling, not feeling sleepy at all. Before long, the bed beside me sank a bit, and Earl hugged me in a flattering way. I wasn't interested and raised my hand to reject him. Earl's eyes turned red, and he said humbly, "Rebecca, don't treat me like this." Outside, there was a loud thunderstorm, and his voice seemed particularly small under the sudden clap of thunder. I looked at his red eyes and felt a pang in my heart. Just as I was about to speak, I was interrupted by a rapid knock on the door. "Ah, Brother Earl, save me." Earl's face changed slightly, and he immediately let go of me to open the door. Iris threw herself into his arms delicately, her small face full of panic. I remembered that night again. "Please stay with me. I'm scared." "Okay, I'll stay with you." Earl gently patted her back with his palm and looked back at me apologetically. "Rebecca, it was also a thunderstorm night that day. The thunder has brought back Iris's psychological shadow. I have to stay with her tonight. Before I could say anything, he turned around and left with Iris in his arms. I slowly lay back on the bed and closed my eyes, hiding the sad glimmer in my eyes. Earl, I'm also afraid of thunder. You once said that you would stay with me every thunderstorm night, but in front of Iris, you've forgotten. I slowly stroked my belly, and the tears I had been holding back finally fell from the corners of my eyes. I'm sorry, baby. I once looked forward to your birth so much, but your father has changed his heart. He doesn't deserve to be your father. I hope you can be reincarnated into a happy family. The next morning, Earl served me an Iris breakfast before going to work. Not long after he left, Earl's mother came to the house. As soon as Earl's mother entered the door, she slapped me in the face. I was caught off guard, and my face was swollen and hot. Earl's mother looked at me coldly, her eyes full of disgust. I thought you were just petty, but I didn't expect you to go around fooling around. You're the kind of daughter-in-law that our Ford family can't afford. You'll divorce Earl tomorrow, and the bastard in your belly must be aborted. Even if it's born, the Ford family won't recognize it. I swallowed the blood in my mouth and looked at Earl's mother calmly. Coincidentally, I don't want to give birth to Earl's child either. I'm going to the hospital right now to have the baby aborted. Rebecca, what nonsense are you talking about? I won't divorce, and you're not allowed to abort the child either. Earl, who rushed back sweating profusely, turned pale when he heard my words. We don't know whose bastard is in her belly. What kind of spell have you been under that you can't leave this bitch? Earl's mother angrily scolded. Earl hugged me, and when he saw that I was okay, he gradually relaxed. Facing his mother's questioning, his eyes struggled, and his mouth opened and closed several times. I looked at his torn expression, and a faint hope rose in my heart. Even if he just clarified things at this moment. I love Rebecca deeply, so I don't care about this matter. I will also raise the child in her belly as my own. Hearing his words, I stood there stunned. The blood in my body almost stopped flowing, and my heart felt desolate as if there was a big hole in it. For Iris, my husband had personally nailed me to the pillar of shame. At this moment, I completely gave up on the man beside me and had no more love for him. Not only does your mother not want this child, but I don't want it either. After Earl's mother left in a huff, I coldly pushed away Earl's arm. Rebecca, do you hate me so much that you don't even want to keep the crystallization of our love? Yes, I hate you. You don't deserve to have me give birth to your child. I stared into his eyes and spoke word by word. Seeing my determined attitude, anger flashed in Earl's eyes, and his voice was as cold as ice. You must give birth to this child. You'll stay in the villa during this time. After saying that, he left in a hurry, afraid to see the hatred in my eyes. From that day on, I was imprisoned by Earl. He took away my phone and set people to guard me in the villa. I didn't understand why he wouldn't let me go. He clearly didn't love me anymore. After living in the villa for a few days, Iris's mother barged in with some people. As soon as she entered the door, she taunted me, with a bastard in your belly. I don't know how you still have the nerve to occupy the position of Mrs. Ford. My daughter Iris is already pregnant with Earl's child. If you're sensible, you should leave on your own to avoid embarrassment. Iris was pregnant. I looked at Iris. Her eyes flickered, and she rushed upstairs in a hurry. As soon as Iris's mother entered the door, she directed the servants to make room for Iris. The child my daughter is carrying is Earl's son. How can she live in the guest room? Quickly throw out all of Rebecca's things and let my daughter move in. The servants in the villa had already heard the rumors outside, coupled with the fact that Earl hadn't come for several days. They obviously disliked me very much. They all tried to curry favor with Iris's mother and roughly threw out the things that belonged to me in the master bedroom. Stop it all. When I saw the jade bracelet, a relic left by my mother, being broken, I shouted angrily. I picked up the baseball bat in the corner and went crazy, hitting people everywhere. Iris's mother was hit by me several times with the bat and jumped up and down, cursing. In the chaos, Earl rushed back. What are you doing? The servants who were about to attack me all stopped and looked at him uneasily. I walked over to the broken bracelet with red eyes and carefully picked up the pieces. Rebecca. Earl also saw the broken bracelet. He knew how important it was to me. Earl, my daughter is pregnant with your child. When are you going to marry her? And this promiscuous woman, you should drive her away quickly. Iris's mother thought Earl was her backer and kept criticizing me. Shut up. I will never divorce Rebecca, and I will never marry Iris. Earl's eyes were red with anger. Iris's mother still wanted to argue with Earl, but she was driven out by the bodyguards. I'll find the most professional person to fix the bracelet. Don't cry anymore. Earl looked at me cautiously. Even if it's fixed, it won't be the same as before. I lowered my eyes and looked at the broken bracelet. My tone meaningful. No, it will be. Earl hugged me tightly and murmured, in a few days, I'll take Iris abroad to have an abortion. After this is all over, we'll definitely be as good as we used to be. In the following days, he stayed in the villa with me and Iris all the time, taking meticulous care of us two pregnant women. Iris had strong pregnancy reactions, and Earl almost never left her side, acting like a good husband. After being locked in the villa for more than a month, in order to have an abortion as soon as possible, I gradually softened my attitude towards Earl. You don't need to keep me locked up anymore. I've thought it through. The child is innocent. No matter what, I will give birth to this child. Really? Surprise shone in Earl's eyes. I've never lied to you, and this time is no different, I said indifferently. Earl excitedly hugged me in his arms. I'll take Iris abroad for an abortion in a few days. I'll come back as soon as her body recovers, and then we'll live a good life together. I let out a soft hum, and my lowered head hid the coldness in my eyes. 2 days later, Earl took Iris abroad. I sat in the villa, quietly waiting for Earl's mother to come. Based on my understanding of her, she definitely wouldn't let me give birth to this child. Sure enough, that afternoon, Earl's mother came to the villa with bodyguards. Arrest this woman and send her to the hospital. There's no need. I'll go by myself. I stood up and stared straight at Earl's mother. You're the one who forced me to abort Earl's child. Earl's mother looked at me with contempt, as if looking at something dirty. How dare you say the bastard in your belly is Earl's child? You're so shameless. He's been bewitched by you. But I won't be. This bastard must die. I turned off the voice recording on my phone and looked at Earl's mother meaningfully. I hope you won't regret it. Under Earl's mother's surveillance, I went to the hospital for an abortion, although I was mentally prepared. At the moment I got on the operating table, I still shed sad tears. I'm sorry, baby. I'm not a qualified mother. When I woke up, I was the only one in the cold and quiet ward. I propped up my slightly aching body and stared at my phone, hesitant to dial the number for a long time. Finally, I couldn't hold back and pressed the dial button. A familiar voice came from the other side. Hearing my mother's voice, I finally couldn't hold back the grievance in my heart and called out with a sob. Mom, my dear, why are you crying? Did that bastard Earl make you suffer? I'll ask your brother to go find you right now. Hearing my aggrieved words, my mother's tone became even more anxious. Mom, I miss you so much. I choked up and said, my dear, give me an address. Mom will come right away. I sniffled and sent the hospital address. Then I lay on the hospital bed, letting my thoughts wander, thinking about the past. My family background isn't actually bad. It's just that our base is in the Northwest, and our family is very low-key. When I entered school, everyone thought my family was just a sheep-herding family. In college, Earl fell in love with me at first sight. After he chased me for a year, I finally agreed to be his girlfriend. Our relationship was very good during the 4 years of college, but when he wanted to marry me after graduation, he was blocked by Earl's mother. She looked down on my family because we were engaged in raising livestock and thought I was vulgar and unworthy of her son. But Earl insisted on marrying me. He even threatened to go on a hunger strike against the pressure from his family. Earl's mother loved her son so much that she finally gave in and allowed Earl to marry me. But we never had a wedding, just got a marriage certificate. In the years since I married Earl, I have tried my best to enrich myself and keep up with him. I learned flower arrangement, wine tasting, and knowledge about various luxury goods. I've changed from a girl who used to run on the grassland into the socialite I used to hate the most. I actually hate the intrigues in high society. Every time I attend social events, I have to carefully figure out the meaning behind every word those socialites say. It's just like the palace intrigue dramas in ancient times. This kind of life makes me tired of it. But I love Earl and am willing to endure it for him. I thought I could grow old with him, but I didn't expect that after Iris came back from abroad, he changed. Although his heart was still with me, his eyes would glance at Iris from time to time. He would never refuse any request Iris made of him. I once reminded them that their behavior was crossing the line. But Earl, who had never lost his temper with me before, lost his temper for the first time. He said that although he had liked her before, now he was just being nice to her to repay her for saving his life. He told me not to be so suspicious and petty. That was the first time we had a Cold War, which lasted for a whole month and finally ended with him apologizing to me. He promised that he wouldn't show favoritism to Iris anymore and would keep his distance from her. But I was still worried. Iris's existence was like a sword hanging over my head, always there. And now it has finally fallen. Coming back to my senses from the memories, I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and silently said to myself, this is for the best. It's like cutting through the mess with a sharp knife. I won't be hurt by love anymore. Back on the grassland, I'll be the little princess in my parents' hearts again. In the evening, my brother and mother came to the hospital. They felt extremely distressed, seeing my pale face. My brother said indignantly, I didn't agree with you marrying Earl in the first place. He seems affectionate, but in fact, he's promiscuous. He's like a central air conditioner to everyone. He's definitely not a good man. You insisted on marrying him, and now you're suffering the consequences, aren't you? What are you talking about? You as a brother. My mother slapped my brother on the shoulder. She wiped her tears and said, your sister is in such a state, and you're still poking at her heart. I'm sorry, brother. I looked at the distress in my brother's eyes and shed tears as I said, when he knew I was going to marry Earl, my brother was the first to oppose it, saying that he wasn't someone worthy of my trust. But I was blinded by love and rushed into it without hesitation. And now I'm left with all these wounds. It's okay, my dear. You're still young. When we get back to the grassland, I'll find you another good man. My mother looked at me and said, my brother acted quickly. He completed the transfer procedures for me on the same day, and we took a private plane back to the vast grassland. Abroad, Earl had just accompanied Iris through the operation. He was feeding her chicken soup when suddenly his heart ached as if it was being squeezed, and his hand trembled, spilling the chicken soup all over her. He covered his chest, feeling a sense of unease. Brother Earl, what's wrong with you? Are you too tired? Come up and take a rest. Iris moved her body and patted the bed as she said, I'm fine. I just remembered that there's something in the company that I haven't told the secretary. I'll go make a call, he said perfunctorily and turned to walk outside. He dialed Rebecca's number, but she didn't answer a dozen consecutive calls. The panic in his heart grew deeper. Rebecca. His Rebecca was gone. He wanted to return to the country immediately to find her, lying on the hospital bed. Iris looked at Earl's back, and a glint of darkness flashed in her eyes. Just as he was about to leave, she curled up on the hospital bed and cried, Brother Earl, can you stay with me a little longer? I'm all alone abroad, and I'm really scared. Every time I close my eyes, I see those disgusting men and the cold operating table. She tugged at the corner of Earl's clothes, crying pitifully with tears streaming down her face. Earl immediately felt soft-hearted. She had just had an abortion, and this was a vulnerable time for her. How could he leave her alone? After all, his mother was taking care of things back home, and Rebecca had also sworn that she would give birth to the child. She wouldn't have an accident. Moreover, she loved him so deeply. How could she be willing to leave? He kept comforting himself in his heart, thinking of Rebecca's jealous expression before. A smile flashed in his eyes. He knew that Rebecca had always been jealous of Iris, but Iris was his savior, not to mention that he had liked her before. With these two factors, he couldn't just ignore her. Besides, every time Rebecca was jealous because of Iris, he was actually very happy inside. This was a sign that Rebecca loved him. Thinking of this, he was completely reassured and firmly believed that Rebecca definitely wouldn't leave him. He stayed abroad with Iris for another month before leisurely returning to the country. As soon as he got back to the country, he rushed straight to the villa and kept shouting before even entering the door, Rebecca, I'm back. However, all the things related to Rebecca in the villa had disappeared. His mother was sitting on the sofa, chatting happily with Iris's mother. Earl, you're finally back. That bitch. Mom has already driven her away for you, Earl's mother said matter-of-factly. She has already signed the divorce agreement. You're back just in time. Go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and get the divorce certificate tomorrow. Iris's baby in her belly is almost 4 months along. Right. While her belly isn't too big yet, you should quickly get the wedding done. When the belly gets bigger, it won't look good in a wedding dress. Iris's mother also chimed in with a smile on her face. Our family is more traditional. We'll have a Chinese-style wedding, which will seem more grand. What are you talking about? Earl was stunned as if struck by lightning, standing there stiffly and speaking in a hoarse voice. Your marriage with Iris. You got her pregnant. Do you still not want to take responsibility? Earl's mother asked a bit unhappily. When did I say I was going to marry Iris? My wife is Rebecca. Earl roared. His eyes were red, and he was like a madman. Where did you send Rebecca? And my child? Where is my child? He asked in a trembling voice, with a foreboding feeling in his heart. What do you mean your child? That's just a bastard, Earl's mother said with a cold face. Stop mentioning that promiscuous woman. She went to a bar at night, got drunk, and was taken advantage of by others. The Ford family doesn't have a daughter-in-law like her. Do you know how people outside are talking about the Ford family? They say you've been cuckolded countless times, and someone else is the real father of the child. The reputation of the Ford family is almost ruined by her. If I had known she would do such a shameful thing, I would never have allowed you to marry her in the first place. Earl's mother got angrier and angrier as she spoke. Earl, stop thinking about that bitch. What about Iris? Why didn't she come back with you? Weren't you two going abroad to relax? Iris's mother didn't see Iris's figure and asked in surprise. Iris. Hee. The baby in her belly has been aborted. Earl looked at the two of them and laughed strangely, his expression a bit crazy. I was wrong. I shouldn't have let Rebecca suffer grievances for those debts of gratitude. A bastard. The child in Iris's belly is the real bastard. It was her who was taken advantage of that night. Ha 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 ha. I actually lost my wife and child for a bastard. Ha 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 ha. Earl laughed wildly, tears falling from the corners of his eyes full of regret. What did you say? The child Rebecca was carrying was yours. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Hearing Earl's words, Earl's mother took 2 steps back, unable to accept it, her face full of disbelief. The smile on Iris's mother's face froze, and she murmured, Impossible. Iris clearly said that the child was yours. There can't be a mistake. Get out. Don't I know whether I slept with her or not? Earl lost all his strength and slumped on the sofa, glaring at Iris's mother with red eyes and shouting. Iris's mother was so frightened by his murderous gaze that she didn't dare to say anything more and left in a hurry. It's okay, son. You're so excellent. It won't be a problem to marry another socialite daughter. Anyway, I don't like that wild girl from the Northwest. Even if she gave birth to a child, it would be a child with inferior genes. You find another daughter of a wealthy family to marry, and the child you have will definitely be smarter and more clever. Earl's mother quickly recovered and said to Earl, Get out. Earl roared like a madman at his mother. I only want Rebecca. I don't want anyone else. For the sake of a woman. You've gone completely crazy. Calm down. I'll come to see you in a few days. Earl's mother covered her chest and said disappointedly. After Earl's mother left, Earl was the only one left in the huge villa. Looking at the lifeless villa, he regretfully murmured to himself, Rebecca, I was wrong. Will you come back? I returned to the Northwest. Looking at the familiar grassland, I felt extremely relaxed inside. My parents are indeed cattle and sheep farmers, but more than 10 years ago, they started their own business and established several factories. The milk they produce is supplied all over the country. After more than 10 years of development, they have become the top milk supplier in the country. However, my parents have always been very low-key. They have never accepted any interviews, and they even used their connections to have their names removed from some rich lists. When I was young, I asked them why. My father smiled and said to me, Don't show off your wealth. I'm doing this to protect you, and the money your father has earned isn't enough yet. For truly rich people, those lists don't dare to list their names openly at all. When I got home, my mother forced me to rest in the room for a month. She didn't let me out to have fun until my face turned rosy. I went to the grassland at home, riding a horse and happily herding the sheep and cattle. I seemed to blend in with nature, feeling very happy. After being cooped up in the city for a long time, I galloped on the grassland for a whole week. After several days of being exposed to the wind, I caught a cold as expected and lay in bed for several days. My father looked at me with a look of frustrated at someone's failure to live up to expectations and said, You weakling, starting tomorrow, you'll receive physical training with your brother. When I heard my father's words, I immediately frowned. No, Dad, aren't those things only for the heirs to learn? Why do I need to learn them? From now on, you also need to learn to handle company affairs. My father stared at me and said, Why? I immediately looked dejected. Don't I have my brother? My mother chimed in. In the past few years, with the joint efforts of your father and your brother, the company has been growing larger and larger. Your brother is already finding it a bit difficult to manage it alone, so you must step up and give your brother a hand. I was shocked. Is my brother that capable? Although I was reluctant, I was still forced by my father to join the company's management team and started as his assistant. He and my brother were like stuffing knowledge into my head like ducks being force-fed. My leisurely days were gone. I was so busy every day that I didn't even have time to catch my breath. My head was filled with all kinds of data and company reports. I simply didn't have the spare energy to think about Earl. Time passed quickly in my busyness. In the blink of an eye, a year passed. Under the strict teachings of my brother and father, I gradually became able to handle things independently and negotiate contracts on my own. Yesterday, I just came home after negotiating a project. I was lying on the sofa drinking yogurt when I saw my brother leading more than a dozen men in. Each of them was over 1.8 meters tall and had a handsome face. Brother, what are you doing? I jumped up from the sofa like a startled rabbit and looked at these men, feeling a bit at a loss. Finding you a man. Pick one and see which one you like. My brother sat on the sofa casually and said very frankly. I swallowed hard. Is my brother this open-minded? I have no intention of falling in love now. I just want to focus on my career. I reluctantly shifted my gaze away from those more than a dozen men and said righteously. I'm not asking you to fall in love, but you need an heir. My brother looked at me idly and said. I discussed it with Mom and Dad. Given your taste and the degree of your love brain, the best choice is not to get married. Anyway, our family is rich and can support you for the rest of your life, but you need an heir. These are the men that Dad and I carefully selected for you. Which one do you think is suitable? Hearing my brother's shocking words, I coughed lightly and said slowly, I don't know any of these men. At least give me some time to get to know them. What you're doing now is like animal breeding. Okay, I'll give you a year's leave. Hurry up and choose a man to have a child with. My brother waved his hand and said very heroically. When I heard about the 1-year leave, my eyes lit up. I happily promised that I would take a good look at them. After reading the information my brother gave me, I started getting to know these boys one by one. A year later, I took a fancy to one of the boys. His name was Galen. He was very handsome, but his personality was a bit weak and he was lacked of assertiveness. More importantly, his parents were both dead, and he was very ambitious himself. He was able to get into a top university in the country even though he grew up relying on the kindness of others. He has a high IQ, which is also good for the next generation. In this year, I was in charge of external affairs, and he took care of internal matters. He provided me with enough emotional value. Although I didn't fall in love with him, I couldn't help but have a little bit of liking and a flutter in my heart. Before confessing to my parents, I thought carefully. In fact, such a marriage wasn't bad either. There's no need to pursue unforgettable love. The warmth of a long-lasting relationship is also something to be desired. I knew you would choose him. My father looked at Galen and said meaningfully, What are you hiding from me again? I looked at their knowing expressions with a confused look on my face and pouted. Galen came here for you. Don't you remember? He's the little brother who played with you when you were a child. My father said with a smile. The little brother from my childhood. I was stunned for a moment and dug out the memory of a dark-skinned little boy. That year, I was 9 years old and playing on our family's ranch. The little boy was responsible for watching over my safety and accompanying me to play at the same time. I took a close look at Galen's fair and clean face and came to a conclusion. They say that girls change a lot as they grow up, but boys also change a great deal. But, Brother Earl, your child will be called a bastard. Galen is a qualified and capable assistant at home. Since I gave birth to our child, he has very consciously taken on the heavy responsibility of taking care of our daughter. After I finished my confinement period, I threw myself into work. Before long, I became the vice president of the company. I saw Earl again at an exhibition. As a representative of the company, I went to participate in the event, and our eyes met on the venue. After not seeing him for a few years, Earl no longer had his former high spirits. He was filled with exhaustion all over. He looked at me, and his eyes lit up. He kept wanting to come over, Rebecca. But soon, he saw Galen standing beside me and our daughter in his arms. The steps he had taken stopped immediately. His expression was sorrowful, and he wore a bitter smile. I looked at him very calmly. I knew that in the past 2 years, under the threat of Earl's mother, Earl had married Sandra. Sandra has a rather bad temper and is very suspicious. Iris's family was her first target. After learning about everything Earl had done for Iris, she directly blocked Iris on the street with bodyguards and revealed all the things she had done. Iris's reputation was completely ruined, and everyone knew that she was a mistress. Iris's family company was also bankrupted by her. The Iris family had no choice but to flee abroad with the little bit of assets they had managed to save. She also often went to the company to catch Earl in the act of infidelity. Several female secretaries suffered undeserved disasters. They were just doing their normal jobs but were beaten up as mistresses. Earl and Sandra had small arguments every 3 days and big arguments every 5 days. They were distracted by family disputes and lost too much energy. When he was dealing with company affairs, he inevitably got distracted and made several wrong decisions. This led to a decline in the company's performance. And in order to make Earl yield, Sandra took the opportunity to let Sandra's family snatch a very important project. Earl's family has been severely damaged ever since. Earl's mother was so angry that she went to Sandra's family to make a scene every day. But she was mercilessly driven out. During the pushing and shoving, she was pushed to the ground and hit her waist. Now she is paralyzed in bed. Earl went to great lengths to divorce Sandra, but he was severely retaliated against by Sandra's family. The company, which was already in a difficult situation, was on the verge of collapse. He came to this exhibition to seek new orders and investments. But all of this has nothing to do with me anymore. Ever since he pushed me out to take the blame for Iris, there has been no possibility between him and me. I calmly left his sight and walked forward with Galen and our daughter, just passing by him. I'm sorry. I was wrong. The apology that came a few years late finally reached my ears. But I didn't care anymore. I have my own happy life. And naturally, I won't look back at the dirt of the past. The end of the full text.